The Cartoonerific podcast is sponsored by the Wonderful World of Animation Gallery, home of rare and wonderful fine animation art. Visit their website at wwagallery.com. And for our Cartoonerific listeners, you will receive a special 10% discount off any purchase if you purchase by March 25th, 2024. Just go to wwagallery.com and enter code CARTOON10 for your 10% discount. Once again, this discount is only valid until midnight, March 25th, 2024. Once again, visit wwagallery.com.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific, yeah! It's Cartoonerific, Cartoonerific, it's Cartoonerific, with your host Brian Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Cartoonerific podcast that's classic animated cartoons. My name is Brian Mitchell, and I'm your host. In the coming weeks, we're going to have a bunch of great guests coming up. We have Mr. Mark Arnold. He is the author of the book about Depatie Freleng cartoons. He'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. We also have Debbie Weiss, who is the owner of the Wonderful World of Animation Gallery in California. She will be on. And then we have an interview coming up with Mr. Willie Ito. Willie Ito is a fantastic layout guy. He's influenced many of those wonderful Hanna-Barbera shows. He also did the original designs for Cecil and Cecil the Sea Serpent from Beanie and Cecil. He did those designs. He interpreted the puppet designs because they're originally puppets as part of a show back in the early 50s, I think 1949, 1950. And then they were interpreted for animation. And so he did the original designs of those model sheets. But he was also a layout artist for Warner Brothers cartoons. So he worked on some of those Looney Tunes with Friz Freleng, and then went on to work for Hanna-Barbera. He's going to be up in a couple of weeks. We should have him soon. So that's going to be also a two-parter. So stay tuned for that. Last week, Bill Waldman was here for the first of a two-part episode. First part was enjoyable, but I think you'll really get a kick out of the second part as well. So that's coming up soon, right after this. Don't go away.
Cartoonerific is the place to be to celebrate hand-drawn animated cartoons. The Cartoonerific podcast features interviews with the magic makers behind your favorite animated cartoons, with episodes uploaded every Friday. Or visit the Cartoonerific blog featuring articles about classic cartoon animation. At the Cartoonerific Gallery, view original animation art and memorabilia from your favorite animated films and TV shows. The company store features exclusive swag from the Cartoonerific universe. And coming soon, brand new world premiere cartoons on the Cartoonerific channel. It's all here. Join the fun at www.cartoonerific.com. That's cartoon, ERIFIC.com. It's Cartoonerific, saving the universe one funny cartoon at a time. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
You know, Bill Waldman, he's kind of this unassuming guy, but he is a workhorse. And when I say that, when I used to watch him work, he was just like glued to the desk. And I'm not like that. I get a good, when I'm working at the drawing board, I can get a good 4 hours in, but, it was just pretty incredible because when I was getting up for lunch, he'd still be glued to that board working on it. I couldn't believe how good his work ethic was. It was incredible. Anyway, he went on to do some great stuff. So please sit back and enjoy. After that, you went on Troll in Central Park, and was that a delight to work on? Because I worked on it, and I had, excuse me, I had some fun with things. I thought there were some scenes that were pretty good, but I think the fact that movie kept changing, like they would give me a scene, I would animate the scene, and then it was basically approved, and then I'd be tightening it up, and then they would come in, production manager would come in. I think it was it Thad?
Maybe. I don't remember.
The production manager would come in, and basically you'd say, I need that scene. And I said, why? What's going on? He said, it's been cut. And then and then basically they hand me a similar scene back, and then that was, it was just slightly different. Instead of a monkey in it, it was a troll now. And, and then the angles were different, but I did have fun. I did have fun with it because the characters were a little bit more cartoony, I thought, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember you animating a scene that it was very complex, going down a stairwell, and it was a pan down a stair. And I remember you just literally just wanting to slit your throat over that. Well, maybe not, maybe not doing that, but I just remember it being such a bear. Why me? Why do I get this scene? And but you made it really come alive, and you did a great job with it. So it was like four trolls holding the bed, right? Of the queen coming down the stair, and you got that whole set. Do you remember how long that was?
I don't.
It was a massive scene.
I know it was very complex, and it was very much, even the final result when you'd watch it, there's so much going on in it. There's no way you can catch everything. It's not that long of a scene, but there's so much going on in it.
Right.
I mean, it just,
I don't know. I thought, because an average scene is like 4 to 5 seconds, maybe even shorter. And this, I just remember this thing because it was a pan involved, and it had to be somewhere at least 9 or 10 feet of animation. And I just remember looking at that and like just going, oh my God, I don't even know how I wouldn't know how to approach that scene. It was so complex because it was like a spiral staircase, wasn't it? It was like a spiral going down.
It was a spiral staircase. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty amazing.
So they were turning, they were coming down, and they were turning as they were walking down.
Yes.
So you had to rotate the whole ensemble.
Right. So you had to have the perspective right and all that. But you pulled it. You pulled it off. You did a great job. What was the last thing you worked on at Bluth? You went on. Okay, so you did Troll in Central Park. You did a bunch of stuff on there. Were you satisfied with the work that when you saw the film?
I mean, it's the film itself. I don't really find that engaging. I think there's some nice work in it.
Yeah.
But it ended up, I believe, just going straight to video instead of being a theatrical release, unfortunately.
Warner Brothers distributed it, believe it or not.
Yes.
And
interestingly enough, we did that, and then we did Thumbelina.
Right.
But interestingly enough, Thumbelina came out before, in 1994, I believe,
right.
Spring of 1994. And then Troll in Central Park came out on video, home video, in 1995, I believe.
Right. They test marketed the Troll in Central Park in Boston.
Is that what it was? I thought it was Minnesota, but it was Boston. Okay.
I believe it was Boston. They test marketed in Boston. I think it played for a week, and Warner Brothers deemed it unreleasable. And so, yeah. So that's why I'm sure it was successful on home video. But
I don't know what the numbers were there, but
you so you went on to Thumbelina, and you did a lot of stuff with the princess, right?
It seemed like Thumbelina and the Prince. I seem to get mostly those scenes.
Right.
A few scenes with the Beetle, and
it was Gilbert Gottfried doing the.
Yes, Gilbert Gottfried doing the voice.
Yeah, he just passed away.
Yes, we lost him recently. Yes.
Yeah, very, very funny guy.
He did a great job on that character. I mean, that's not many people know that movie. He's mostly known, of course, for his work in Aladdin, but he did it. I remember I was going through some old tapes because I was actually trying to find something else, and I found my tapes of the Bluth tests, and I saw a couple of those scenes I did with Gilbert Gottfried doing the voice. He gave a really nice performance in his. He put feeling into his performance. He didn't just say his lines. He did a good job.
No, he did a great job as the parrot in Aladdin.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there is acting in there. There is, some really good, really, really funny stuff. What I'm just, I noticed that like when Bluth was doing stuff and they discovered Dom DeLuise, it's almost like the folks at Disney, some of the directors over there said, "Oh wow, Dom DeLuise actually works as a voice. Let's use him." Right?
Yes.
And then Bluth said, "No, he's our guy," and ended up using him for American Tail, and just about every movie after that. The funny, I'm just going to go backtrack. So if you don't already know this, Buddy Hackett was supposed to be the troll in Central Park. We had all his lines recorded, and I think his stipulation was he would do 1 or 2 takes. That would be it, and he might do a pickup. And some of the material was not all that great. And then a decision was made, well, we need somebody who's a little bit more flexible, so they called in Dom DeLuise to save the day on that picture. So I think with Thumbelina, with Gilbert Gottfried, I think that picture was done. Was that done after Aladdin? Do you remember that? Aladdin came out in what, 92?
I think it was. It was. They were almost being done at the same time, if I remember right. Because I remember people at the studio saying, they were also there's some hesitation about using Jodie Benson for the voice of Thumbelina because she was Little Mermaid. We don't want to be copying Disney. We want to have our own. We want to be original and that kind of thing. And
all right. Well, that goes back to what I'm talking about with the voices. Borrowing.
Yeah. Voice talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, if I remember right, I remember hearing someone saying, "Oh yeah, Gilbert's doing a voice in Aladdin too," but the movie hadn't come out yet because we were working on Thumbelina in 1991,
right?
And Aladdin came out in 1992.
That's interesting. I think that voice works better for the parrot because it's so over the top. I don't think it works so good for the guy because he's a bug too. He's a bug, right?
Beetle. Yeah.
But he's a beetle, but he looks like a guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so so you're working on Thumbelina, and you're enjoying the movie. You're enjoying working on the movie.
I felt better about Thumbelina as a movie. I felt the score was better. The songs were better. I felt the voices were better. And just in general, the story has its problems, but it's better. It was better than I think Troll.
Right.
And so I felt really good about working on it. I did like Barry Manilow's songs in it. So I think that it was challenging, though, because like I say, I seem to get a lot of scenes of Thumbelina herself and the prince, and I just thought they were very difficult to draw because the human characters seemed to be very unforgiving. And I felt like maybe I didn't have the drawing chops to be able to kind of keep up with some of the demands of those scenes. But I made it. And I pulled through, but it was challenging, which is good though. You push yourself, and that's always good. Yeah,
sometimes you have it in you, but it's just like you're not. It's so much easier to do something that you've known and that you've done before, and then when you get something like these human characters, and you're maybe not so used to that, it doesn't mean that you don't have the talent to pull it off. It just means that you got to dig down deeper and just work a little bit harder. I think the human characters in that picture look pretty darn good. How did Thumbelina wrap up? Because there was a little bit of trouble in Bluthland, I think, during those couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were not told a lot of stuff that was happening at the time, probably just to protect our, uh,
Give you
sort
the
of
sense of
keep
security, maybe?
just keep it like so people wouldn't get discouraged, and there would be people keep an upbeat attitude about the movie and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it was probably they were running into probably some money problems, although we didn't know it at the time.
Right.
I think it was only after looking back. But I thought it wrapped up fine. I remember there was a little bit of a hurry and a little bit of push to get it done. And I remember being told it was because Beauty and the Beast had just come out. It was making a lot of money. And they wanted a similar story. Like it felt like it was another fairy tale. So they wanted, this is hot now. So we want to get this movie out.
Right.
But I think a lot of it too, I think, like I say, I'm sure some of it was they were just kind of running out of money and they needed to get it off the books,
Right.
get it off the, get on to the next film,
Right. So how did you go? Was that the last picture you worked on for Bluth, or?
Well, there was a few months of working on the next film, which was Pebble and the Penguin, and I remember doing a few scenes for it, and it was just after a few months of that they basically said that the studio was closing down because they were running into some money issues. So we were all pretty much laid off. We were all told that was it, and yeah.
Wow.
Looking for work then.
Yeah. So what? So
that was, that was like late summer of '92. Maybe like August, September of 1992.
Right. Yeah, it had to be a sad moment because you were doing real well over there. I thought, and
yeah. Well, also too because it was like that's the only place I had worked out here, so I didn't have any contacts with any other place, any other studio. So I was like, how am I going to get another job?
Right.
And I remember taking my portfolio around to some places and showing some of my Bluth scenes. But since they were heavily influenced by live action reference, some of the places didn't necessarily trust that I could animate. They were like, well, you seem like you're really relying heavily on live action. And they understood that was the assignment I was given. I had to. That was the way of getting the scene done. You were told that that's the way you had to do it.
Right.
So it was a little hard there. I think for a while there, I was out of work for maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Right.
I got a little freelance in there, I think, for a few weeks.
Right.
But I started at Warner Brothers Classics, it was called.
Right.
In January of 1993. So that started my relationship with Warner Brothers, which has been terrific. It's lasted so many years here. It's really grateful for that.
Right. Wow. So what were some of the projects you were working on you were working on some animation for like Bugs Bunny commercials, or what was going on?
Yeah. It was mostly commercials. That was the large part of it. Special projects and anything that had to do with the Looney Tunes characters, they gave to us to do.
Right.
So it was a special thing or a special project. Then we did the short Carrot Blanca that started, I think, early 1994. So the first half of 1994, I was animating on this great little short they had, a spoof of the movie Casablanca, but with the Looney Tunes characters.
Right.
And they gave me a lot of Tweety character in that.
So you did Tweety on that.
A lot of the scenes of Tweety, yeah.
I think I recall you enjoying working on Tweety.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I like that.
Yeah, you did some other Tweety stuff too, didn't you? Besides that?
Probably like in some of the commercials we did. I don't really remember exactly a lot of those, but yeah.
Right. So at that time, you were pushing to get into Disney, right?
Yeah. Well, that was early part of '94. I was pushing it into Disney. I think I had seen some kind of a presentation they had on the lot of all the different movies that were coming out. They had in Project. I think it was basically Disney was trying to recruit people. People that did not work there were invited to this special event on the lot, and they had these presentations of all the projects they had coming up, and I was yes.
Yeah, I'm showing Bill a coffee mug with Mickey Mouse at a drawing table, and it's the Walt Disney Feature Animation Open House 1993, and it was sponsored by Motion Picture Screen Cartoonists, the union. And that's when I went to that presentation. So, yeah. And
I had, like I say, that was always my goal, to work at being a Disney animator. So I felt like with the Warner Brothers work, and maybe a few of some fumbling scenes mixed in, but most of it the Warner Brothers work, I could show that I could animate without the aid of a live action reference, and that they would trust me that I would be able to handle, animating, basically.
Right.
So I basically, that's basically what I did. I repurposed my portfolio. I redid my reel to include most of my Warner Brothers stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Had the Bugs Bunny logo on there with, that I animated for the Warner Brothers Family Entertainment. And,
that's right. You did the, Bill is the animator of Bugs Bunny in the Warner Brothers Family Entertainment logo before the live action movies. And the first, you said the first one that it appeared on was the Dennis the Menace movie, but it appeared on a lot of others after that, right?
Oh, yeah. They used that all the way through the 90s. It was Dennis the Menace was 1993, and I think they used that all the way through, even long after I had left.
I guarantee everybody, if you like movies and you watched one, I'm sure you've seen one of these movies with Bill's logo right at his logo animation of Bugs Bunny at the beginning of it. So I think that's really neat. I think it's really kind of cool, That
was fun. I did enjoy that. I did enjoy doing that.
So you submitted all that stuff. You submitted it to the Disney Review Board, and
right.
I remember a funny story about that. When you got the portfolio back, but I'm not gonna say it unless you if you mention it, that's fine. But it was I think you said to me all the artwork in your portfolio was basically the same stuff that you submitted a couple of years before that, and
almost all of it was the same.
Yeah, but it was a totally different reaction. And I'm always of the I always believe that if somebody if you have a bunch of people come into a room and they had like a bad bowl of Fruit Loops, I don't know why I use the Fruit Loop analogy, but if they're all having a bad breakfast and they come in, they're miserable, they're going to look at a portfolio a different way. I think, and then it becomes all subjective at that point, according to their mood. So
yeah.
So you submitted the portfolio. What happened when you submitted the portfolio?
I think I submitted like right before Lion King came out. So it would have been like mid-June of 1994.
Okay.
And I got the call, I think in about a month later, almost exactly a month later. It was like mid to late July of 94. That I had the job. And it took a couple months, though, of back and forth with talking to their, I don't know who it was, discussing salary and and I wasn't asking for a lot of money. I wanted more than what I was making at Warner Brothers, but,
right.
People were telling me, okay, ask for about $1,000 more a week than what you really want. And then they'll probably give you what you really want. They won't give you. So I think that's what I did. I asked for, 1,000, and that's what ended up happening. They said, well, that's kind of high even for us. So you know what, we'll offer you this. And I'm like, okay,
right.
That was actually pretty good. But I remember it was back and forth because it was like I talked to somebody, they're like, "When we gotta get back to you on that?" And it would be like at least a week or two before I'd hear back, before they'd call me back.
Yeah. Because I had to go through another review board to see if they could approve such a thing.
Probably.
Well, put it through 20 executives and see what they say. You know.
Yeah, if everybody's okay with it, yeah. So yeah, it seemed to take quite a while, and it ended up starting there a few months later after that.
Right.
But that was a really great time to be coming in because, like I say, Lion King was just making $1 gazillion at the box office, and animators were being treated like kings, basically, literally. Sure. And I remember it was like I remember going to the Disney store in the Glendale Mall to buy the Art of the Lion King book that had just come out because for the time for the release of the movie.
Right.
And I was in line and I had no idea why. I believe it was the cashier asked me if I was a Disney animator. And I said, well, it's funny you should ask that. I just got hired there and I'm starting in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that were in line were like, oh my gosh, a Disney animator. Did you hear that? There's a Disney animator here. And like it went down the line and I was like, this is just so bizarre. I just couldn't believe it. Yeah. I was like, what? So again, it was like, what a great time to be there and what a great time to come into the studio. And I was hired to work on Pocahontas. That was my first movie there. And assigned to work with John Pomeroy, interestingly enough, on John Smith.
Wow.
Character.
So it was like a continuation. Or it's like you did a little bit of a hiatus and then you came back to work for him at a different place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what happened was when I came in, they said, what character do you want to work on? And I was shocked that they were even asking me that. I was like, you mean you're not just going to tell me? You're going to give me a choice here? So I said, well, I didn't think I was good enough to work on one of the main characters. So I said, well, how about that little raccoon that's in it? I didn't know the character's name. I just had seen a scene from it. Character was Miko.
Right.
Or I said, how about maybe the forest animals maybe? Or because I was thinking I'll be, since I'm brand new here, all these, the big boys will be playing with the bigger characters and I'll just be doing these miscellaneous characters.
Right.
They said, well, hey, but we really need help on John Smith or Pocahontas. Is there either of those characters you'd be interested in? I was like, I was in such shock. I was like, really? You want to assign me to one of the main characters? And I said, sure, if that's okay with, I said, how would you feel about working with John Pomeroy again? And I said, yeah, that'd be fine if it's okay with them. They said, okay, yeah. So maybe they felt because I'd worked with them before, maybe they felt like, okay, there's a good working relationship there that we can,
right.
It'll out. So that's what they did.
I remember talking to you about this, and you said you had a real good time working on that movie, even though it was challenging.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a totally different working environment for you, wasn't it? With because I guess at Bluth, because of the just the way it was structured, I guess, and then coming over to Disney, and it was maybe a little bit looser in terms of how you worked.
Well, they still had the live action reference, but it wasn't treated as that you had to go so closely to it as they did at Bluth. They allowed, the emphasis was more on the performance than on, how closely you're sticking to the live action or like even the drawing aspect of it. I remember John Pomeroy telling me early, yeah, don't worry about the drawing. We'll get good drawings. I'll help you with the drawing if you have trouble with the character. Just get a good performance in the scene. Right. So I always remember that. I thought, wow, that's kind of like a really nice way to approach it. A really good, level-headed way to approach this, rather than being so worried about so many other aspects of animation.
Yeah, I think when we were at Bluth, it was kind of like the rough that you did of a scene was, you could go pretty rough, but it had to be pretty close to model. You couldn't really be too off there. And then you had to you were the one that ended up tightening it up. And were you tightening up your own drawings there, or did you have an assistant taking your drawings and putting them on model
at Disney?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to differentiate the working environment, because I know, I sat there for hours trying to get that drawing as perfect as possible. And sometimes if you look at, I don't want to say Glenn Keane or, some of the other people there, but you see their roughs. Did they tighten those drawings up, or did they have an assistant tightening it up and putting it just so to? Did you tighten up your own drawings, or?
Yes. Yeah, I tightened up on my own.
Wow. You weren't leaving anything for chance
I
there.
remember John Palmer would help me out with the drawing. You give me a drawing. That was one thing that was almost, a standard there. Your supervising member would give you a drawing or two, and maybe because I was new too, maybe John felt like coming in on the movie, and other people have been working on it for several months, and so. But John was very helpful with me on Pocahontas. He was very could have asked for a better supervisor to work under on that movie.
Right. I think he just he felt the responsibility for that character and to make it sing.
Yeah.
And so how many other animators were on that character? It had to be
it was large. It was a large group. I'm gonna say maybe 8, 9, maybe. I don't remember actually. Right. I mean, I looked at the credits, but it was a good sized group.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was Pocahontas, and then is there any favorite scene that you did on there that we would know that
on Pocahontas?
Yeah. Something that you worked on that your favorite scene that you animated?
I did get to do a scene of Nico, the character I originally asked to work on, the raccoon.
Right.
Maybe I'm not sure why they gave that to me. Maybe that was just an extra that they had, and they needed someone to do it. But he had just fallen into Pocahontas' arms and does a little, and with the headdress on him, the Indian feathered headdress.
Right.
And, does a little shrug with his shoulders and zips off, and it was just kind of Pocahontas and her father are having a very serious discussion. In the midst of this, he falls off a shelf and falls into her arms and kind of breaks up. I think they were trying to lighten up the scene a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it actually got a laugh in the theater when I saw it with an audience, which was kind of nice.
Right. Well, they were comic relief characters. You had Flit and Miko, and they were.
And they ended up making a Carousel out of it and selling it at the Disney store. So I would see a scene that I drew being sold as a Carousel.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool.
Disneyland and so that was kind of nice. But yeah, if I had to pick a scene, that might be it from Pocahontas.
Ah, there you go. So you finished up Pocahontas, where I know they premiered it in Central Park, right?
Yes.
They did like the 4-screen thing. I don't know how much of a success that was, but were you invited to that, or that was just something that they did from afar and they just said, here, we're putting you on this thing now? Yeah,
no, they just I think you could go, of course, and they told everybody about it and gave everybody the details of, how to think, but that was all on your own. If you wanted to go there, that was not going to be a paid for thing.
I see.
For employees.
I see.
Yeah.
So when you saw it when you guys were done with the movie,
yes,
and you saw it, I'm sure they have a big screening for you, when the movie's done.
Yes.
So how did that feel?
That felt really great because, a lot of people criticize Pocahontas and, point out some of the weaknesses or the flaws in it. And, it's not the best movie, but I think if you look at it now, it's actually a lot better than what people give it credit for back then.
I really like the movie.
Yeah, they were trying for a really ambitious. They aimed the bar pretty high, and they may have not have hit it, but they came close to hitting it. So they, and I actually felt really good about the movie. When I finally saw the finished product, and being my first Disney movie, I was really happy about it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that had to be something working with these people. You know, you're looking outside in for so many years,
Yes.
and now you're inside, and you're one of the guys. You're one of the guys
Yes.
making it. So
Yeah.
it had to be a
Yeah, I
thrill.
mean,
Yeah.
the scenes. I mean, I I had the very easy job of it. I shared a few scenes with Glenn Keane at the very end of the movie where Pocahontas basically saves John Smith's life,
Right.
and she's covering him over the rock. She's like sort of holding him, and I remember Glenn doing the Pocahontas drawings and me going back and forth to his room, and just to be working with this person who's, even back then, he was considered like a legend
Yeah.
in animation, to be like, sharing a scene with him. That was just like, wow, that's just unreal,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great experience.
So after Pocahontas, they throw you on to the next picture.
Yeah.
And this was a picture. Is this the picture that they wanted to put you on in another state?
No, it was actually a Hunchback was the next one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Hunchback was worked on that for about a year. Was assigned to Tony Fucelli's unit, Esmeralda, which Tony was a fantastic person to work with. I mean, I can't say enough good about him as a supervising animator.
Oh, he's. I worked with him on Fern Gully, and I was freelancing, but he was just great. He just kind of showed you the stuff. This way you got to do, and I mean, and he was open, just very open.
Yes.
Yes. Almost like there's not too many people like that I found in the business. Kind of like they bring in and they tell you this is it. This is what you need to do, and these are the poses you need to hit, and then sayonara. And I don't want to say there's a lot of them like that, but and then you kind of go out and you do it, and you feel like you got a little bit of direction from. But Tony Fucelli would he would go in and just really, you knew everything you needed to do, and you didn't feel like it would be a problem if you came back and asked him some questions about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very non-threatening. Yeah. Good guy to work with.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. No, that was, and he gave me such great scenes. I mean, I got scenes way better than I thought I would really deserved at that point in my career. And he just, I can say I was, surprised. So kind of spoiled me a little bit. I think when I went into Hercules, I was expecting a little bit, more of the same, but it wasn't quite the same. I mostly was doing a lot of action, really fast moving scenes of Hercules fighting the Hydra in that sequence. That was almost the whole first half of that sequence.
Right.
Is my stuff, fighting the Hydra. And that was very
well, okay.
I mean,
so we're going from
acting, dialogue, and just
pure action.
Here and there is pure action, swinging swords, jumping, just action, just pure action.
So the contrast being that, Esmeralda is all this controlled animation, and
more acting, more dialogue, more feeling, more emotion. And
then a year later, now you're just doing all action scenes. You are the it's pretty amazing. So you got the full first half of that Hydra section of the movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
So that was it wasn't until I think the movie you were referencing earlier was Mulan, and that was after Hercules.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because wasn't that was when you came into Disney? Didn't they want you to go to Florida? Didn't they want you to go to Florida first to work on Mulan?
Yes. When you submit the portfolio, there's a sheet in there, and one of the questions they want you to check off is, are you willing to move to Florida to work there? And I checked yes on that, pretty much because I was worried that if I didn't, they might just throw the whole thing out. Like, hey, we're not going to consider this guy.
Right.
But there was enough interest in the productions happening here that when I, came in, they said, the Mulan crew really wants you, but we also have interest in both the Hunchback and the Pocahontas crews.
Mhm.
So we're going to give you the choice of where you want to work. And I said, well, I'd rather stay here. It's kind of like, and I think they were trying to push Mulan more, but I was like, yeah, no, I kind of really would rather stay here than move to Florida. And they said, okay. They didn't give me too much pushback on that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the worry that if you go to Florida, because the only game in town was Disney in Florida.
Right.
So if on a whim they said, oh, gee, we got to downsize. We got to downsize. We got to get rid of somebody. It could be you. It could be you. I mean, you could be the greatest in the world. Sometimes it has nothing to do with how good you are. It may be the money. It might be, it might be like, well, we can lose this guy because he's costing us X amount of dollars, and we got up and comers that can kind of handle this stuff, and that's just a reality. I mean, at Disneyland back in the 80s, when Eisner came in, all these people, there were people there that were making really good salaries. And the first people to go were right at the top. All those top managers that were making over, I don't know if they were making $100,000 a year or more, but the ones that were making excellent salaries were all lopped. They were all told, well, we put you on a part-time basis or you can go. And it was unfortunate, but sometimes that's the way it works, So, that's the problem with going to Florida. You don't know if you're cut, you got to relocate yourself back to Los Angeles and try to get back into the industry there. And it could be very difficult. So,
yes.
Yeah. So I could see resistance. So, but you ended up.
I ended up working on Mulan anyway, because what happened was they were that was the next film to be released after Hercules, and they weren't sure they were going to be able to finish it. So they wanted to get a little bit of a satellite studio out here in California, and they picked 10 animators. They said, well, you can have 10 of our animators to work on Mulan here, and I was one of the 10 that they picked.
Wow.
So I worked on Mulan after Hercules.
How long were you on for that? What was
it? Was just about a year.
Were you working on humans again on that?
Yeah. They assigned me to Shang, Mulan's kind of love interest as head of the platoon, I guess, that she's in.
Right.
And Ruben Aquino was the head animator the supervising animator on that character. And again, a great person to work with.
Right.
Really easygoing. Yeah.
Pretty neat. Well, Aquino, was Aquino in Florida? Did he move to Florida?
Yes, he was in Florida.
Wow.
I remember going to Florida for a few weeks to just sort of meet the crew and meet Ruben and see what was happening over there. But of course, primarily I was working here in California on it.
When you went to Florida, did you say, "Oh God, I'm glad I didn't go there"?
No, not necessarily.
That place was designed to look like this animator's paradise, at least from the fishbowl.
Yeah,
up in the tour.
Yeah. We were in we didn't. That was just kind of like for show mostly. And there's some people working there, but most everybody was in these trailers that were in the back, which weren't. They were okay, but they weren't like
right,
fantastic. Yeah,
they didn't have an animation building back there. It was just trailers. So it's a fishbowl and trailers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at the time. I mean, later then they built that big, animation studio, and then they ended up closing the place down. Then a few years later, after it, like 2003, I think that closed.
Yeah.
But yeah, this would have been 1997.
Right. I think Lilo and Stitch was the last thing they did, maybe before they closed it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Bear, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe you're right. It's Brother Bear.
Brother Bear, yeah.
Lilo and Stitch was done. It was the budget movie. I think at $90 million. And
yes.
Whereas most of these things were costing about 150, and that was the big cut down. It was a pretty decent movie. You didn't end up working on that, right?
Which one?
Lilo.
Lilo?
You didn't work on Lilo.
No.
You stayed in Burbank. So what was after Mulan? What was the picture after Mulan?
What's that?
How about this? When you saw Mulan, what'd you think of it?
I actually really liked it, and I felt like it was probably the best movie I had worked on up until that point. And initially, I didn't really want to work on it because when I first heard, like, initially what it was about, I was like, "Oh, come on!" Just like one of these kind of female empowerment stories of, like,
Right.
woman doesn't do anything. She comes in there and kicks butt and shows everybody up and this and that. And, I am woman, watch me roar, like Helen Reddy sang in that song. But then when I found out more about it and saw that the reason she was doing it was to kind of save her father, and it wasn't a reason it was a good reason to do it, in other words. And I felt like they pulled it off really well. I felt the filmmakers, directors, the story people really pulled off a really good movie, focused and entertaining, and just a feel good story. So I was happy that, to eventually have worked on it.
I thought it was an excellent movie. I thought it was a terrific film. What was interesting about that, they had a parade over in the Disney Studios, and it was the Mulan parade. And these floats were magnificent, but the soundtrack to it was pretty amazing, because they were using all the instrumental parts of the soundtrack for that parade. And I mean, I remember liking the movie, but I also remember liking the parade too, just listening to it. I wasn't even watching the parade per se. I don't know why I brought that up. Just it's a good memory. So after Mulan, what was the next project?
I'm trying to remember now. I think it was that next year was a little bit of a weird year because I remember I think I worked for a little bit on Tarzan because they needed help. I wasn't really officially assigned to the movie, but they it was Kingdom of the Sun, which eventually became the Emperor's New Groove.
Right.
That's running into huge story problems. They did a whole retooling of the movie, and so I was originally assigned to that movie, and that was put on hold. So they moved almost everybody on to Tarzan because that did need help, and that was coming out soon. And so I just did mostly like miscellaneous characters, apes, thugs, baboons. I mean, just just a bunch of other like sort of miscellaneous characters. I think I got additional animation credit on it.
Right.
So I wasn't really on a unit. And then we did the Human Again sequence for the reissue of Beauty and the Beast, which I loved. That was like probably my favorite, most enjoyable project working on there.
It was excellent. It was excellent, and it fit right into the movie. Right into the main movie. They cut it in, and it was like it was always there. It was almost like I had to go and get some popcorn, and came back and missed that sequence in the original, seeing it the original time, and then but the work that you guys did on it was it matched the original, and it could have been part of the original movie. I guess that's my point. But I was very impressed by that, Bill. I thought you'd
Yeah, and I mean, I love the original. I was so happy to be working on something that would be cut into the original movie and made part of the original movie.
Right.
For that reissue. I guess it was the 10th anniversary, maybe at the time. I can't remember what they were doing.
Yeah.
What the reissue was. Yeah. Then
are there any scenes out of there that we would know that? I mean, if you mention it, maybe people out there listening to it might. Because there are parts of it. I remember the farmer part with. Yes. Were you involved with that?
That was my part. I did Cogsworth in that, and then he gets by a animated pitchfork that's alive. He gets thrown into the barn, and then I did the scene of him in the barn with Lumiere, and that's this big long scene. I can't believe they gave it to me, and it was just this really wonderful long juicy scene of him and Cogsworth. And Lumiere winds up the towel and gives him a smack, and then he falls into the Cogsworth falls into the bucket again.
Right.
That was such a great opportunity to do that scene. Like I say, I loved working on that project.
Pretty cool. Pretty
Yeah.
cool. What happened after the Beauty and the Beast? That piece.
Well, when they retooled Kingdom of the Sun and became Emperor's New Groove, I was actually moved off of that and onto Atlantis. Kind of an interesting story there. The original Kingdom of the Sun I wasn't that happy with, and I had such a great time working on Hunchback with Kirk and Gary as the directors, Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale.
Right.
And they were directing Atlantis, and I said I really would prefer to work on Atlantis. And they said, well, both productions want you. There's interest in both productions, but we'll see. And they were just, they said they really wanted me to stay on Kingdom of the Sun. When the retooling happened, and there's that long break, they said we're going to move you on to Atlantis because that's really ready to go now, and Kingdom still has some more time left before they're ready to start animation, and so we want to get you going on that. So I started on Atlantis. So I was on Atlantis like 2 years, and I did by far the most footage of any Disney movie that I worked on during my time there on Atlantis.
Were you on Milo or?
I was on Milo.
So you're working with John again?
Yes, with John again.
Right.
The third time, third. Well, almost fourth time if you count those two films at Bluth. But second Disney film.
Do you remember how much footage you did on that movie?
I don't. But the fact I was on it for 2 years instead of the usual one,
right.
I mean, it was easily or more than I did on any other film.
Right.
I remember they gave me the first 12 scenes of Milo, the whole first half of that little speech he does in the boiler room in the thing where he's rehearsing how he's going to talk to these executives asking for money and financing for his
very funny stuff. Yeah.
I was like, you sure you want to give this to me? Don't you want to? This is the first time you see the character. I'm just going to give it to John Pomeroy. I said, no, we want you to do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was, again, it was like that responsibility of that. But they, for budget reasons, they were like, we don't have any live action reference to show you. If you want live action, you can shoot it yourself, on a video camera and then just look at it for reference. But, that's basically all they had. So that's basically what I did. I set up a video camera in the basement of the studio where they had a room set up for that. And I filmed myself with a cassette player playing the dialogue, and I acted out the scenes in front of the thing,
right,
in front of the camera, and that's what I used. And
wow,
the directors pretty much approved exactly what I did. They didn't have almost no changes. I can't remember any changes. So what you see there is really is my acting. Basically, it wasn't somebody else's idea there. That was what I decided for him to do, and they went with it, which I was again shocked that I was getting these opportunities, and it was just so they were being so nice about it.
I think the key here, and I tried to allude to this early on, is you were a brilliant animator when I first met you, and hardworking guy, and I think a lot of people see your talent, and it just comes out. That's why you got those opportunities, was because people really thought you were a fantastic animator. And so, Bill, we're running out of time, and I just have to kind of wrap this up. I'd like to have you back because I would like to talk about some of the other work and like what you're working on now, because you worked on a ton of other things. And Mary Poppins Returns, I want to talk to you about, and all that stuff. Would you be willing to come back and talk a little bit more about that?
Sure.
That'd be great. Sure. I would really appreciate it. Bill, thank you for coming on. We'll have
you back. Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at cartoonerific.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just about it for me today. Thank you, Bill Waldman, for a wonderful interview. And we hope to have Bill back on real soon to talk about more Disney stuff, more projects he's worked on. We We touched on a lot of them, but we didn't touch on all of them. So we will have Bill back in the future. Next week, we have on Mr. Mark Arnold. He is the author of the book Think Pink, the story of Depatie Freleng cartoons. If you don't know who Depatie Freleng were, it was made up of two individuals, Dave Depatie, who was a producer, and Friz Freleng, who was a Warner Brothers director. And when the Warner Brothers studio closed, those two were working there. They basically formed their own studio, Depatie Freleng, and guess where they ended up? They set up shop right where Warner Brothers cartoons were. So when the Warner Brothers cartoon studio closed, they opened up Depatie Freleng in the same facility. So that's going to be an interesting show. And we hope you come back and listen to that. In the weeks ahead, we have on Mr. Willie Ito. He is a legend in the business. He's worked on a lot of your favorite Hanna-Barbera cartoons of the 1960s and early 70s. He was also a layout artist for Warner Brothers cartoons, working on the classic Looney Tunes. We have a bunch of other guests planned for the weeks ahead, so please stay tuned for that. If you really like what you hear, please tell a friend. That is the highest form of compliment you can give us, and I know I keep shilling that every week, but it's really important that you let people know that we're here, at least have them listen to an episode or two, and hopefully they like it as well as you. So that's very, very important. Look, I really appreciate everybody coming back and listening to these episodes. You know, if you have any comments, please drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for different episodes or different guests, that's also appreciated. So anyway, I want everybody to have a great day. I want you to have a terrific week, and we hope to see you again real soon. Thank you for tuning in.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.